Thank you very much. This session, it's going to be informative, but we want to make sure, please ask questions, because I know a lot of coaches get caught into, they don't understand the bylaws, athletic directors, and we want to make sure when you leave here that you understand everything that we're explaining to you, because it's going to really help you in different situations. Section 6 and Section 7, those are the two sections as coaches that you really need to know. You need to read 6 and 7. I know sometimes that you won't understand it, but make sure you ask questions with your athletic director, call our office. Rudy is the main contact when it comes to eligibility, and we've also added Scott Owen to the mix. Jackie also is added to the mix, Martinez, and so just make sure you call Rudy or Scott first and foremost, and of course you can always call myself. One thing that you need to make sure you're aware of is I do not have a secretary. Okay, so I answer my own cell phone, I answer my own phone at all hours of the night. So just make sure you call if you have any questions. What Rudy and I talk about is when we get a call from athletic director or coach really late at night, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, we know it's important. And so we will answer the phone. So feel free to call us. Following a coach. This one is very, very important, especially in our day and age with the club world. We had a situation this summer already where we had a student athlete registered at one school beginning at the end of May. They left the 8th grade, went to 9th grade, and registered at one school, participated in the summer league, whatever summer program at the school that they were registered at. They had a change in coaches during that time, and without disenrolling, they enrolled, actually they didn't enroll, they started participating at another school in the summer. This happened probably within a 3 to 4 week span. So what we have done, because it was one student athlete at one school, participating with another coach at another school, and then all of a sudden transferring to that school, that kid is ineligible right now for 180 school days at all levels, not even the JV. And that's one thing as coaches that you have to be aware of. During the summer, it doesn't matter if you coach those, that kid could go to the other school and participate in summer activities, but the violation occurred when they disenrolled and transferred after participating with that one school. That was the violation. It wasn't just playing with them. It's when you disenroll and you enroll at a school that you have already had a relationship with that coach. So a lot of people think that they can't coach club or anything else like that. You can coach club. Can't coach your own kids. You can coach other kids. It's when they transfer because of you, because of your coaching, is where the violation becomes. Okay. Rudy, anything else on that?
The bottom line on this, guys, I guess the easiest way to look at it is for those of you whose school offer 8th grade participation at the high school level, you don't want to touch a kid that is not in your district beginning with the summer that they are entering the 7th grade. Okay, so if a kid, the summer they're entering the 7th grade, if that kid is not in your district, you're looking at a potential violation. Okay, so we'd have to look at the specifics of that, but a rule of thumb, the easiest way to look at that is, this kid's 7th, 8th grade, he's not in my district, he starts coming here to practice with us, like Sally said, they're good to go, but once that kid transfers to your school, it's a problem. So those are the things, that's what you need to take a real good look at.
Make sure you tell the parents. If you have somebody out of your district, I know some of the smaller schools may have about 4 communities together playing in some of these AU tournaments in the summer. Make sure the parents are aware that they are not able to transfer to that coach's school once they start participating. Okay, it is a huge violation. Yes, sir.
So once they are in our district, we only have one middle school. They come to our high school. Us as high school coaches, we're able to coach them beginning their 7th grade summer.
So you're talking in the summer. Summer's open. Yes. If they're your kids, you have at them in the summertime. Okay, we're not regulating the summer at all. Now, especially, and I know a lot of we talk about basketball a lot of times. you have to be real careful in that March, mid-March, because that's when some of those AAU tournaments start until Memorial Weekend. You need to be hands-off in any club activities, even with your kids. You should not be coaching them at that time. Out-of-season coaching. Now, what I just explained was summer and AAU type situation. Out-of-season coaching during the school year. You have 7.5 hours with your kids, Monday through Friday, on school days only with your student athletes. Guys, in the off season, 7.5 hours is a lot of time. I mean, usually in season, you might be 10, 11 hours maybe, sometimes 12, but 7.5 hours, Monday through Friday. You need to make sure in this rule, in section 7, I remember I said read section 6 and read section 7. In this particular rule, I think we have 22 or 23 questions and answers in this rule. It explains everything. And the board just passed that a community service project, where you might be doing Habitat of Humanity or any fundraiser project in the off season, would not count towards those 7.5 hours. Okay, so you just need to be aware. What is, community service, fundraising? You're selling hot dogs, you're working the concession stand, you're going door to door, you're doing a car wash. All those things are fine. Now, the commission and the board also did say a community baseball camp, a community basketball camp, that is not community service. Okay, anything with that sport related, you cannot consider community service. That would be a no on Saturdays. If you have it during the week, some type of camp for the community, that has to count towards your 7.5 hours.
Any kid in your program, grades 7 through 12, are considered one program. Okay, so understand you've got 7.5 hours for all of these kids. It's not, the high school coach doesn't have 7.5 hours, and then the middle school coach 7.5. It's all inclusive. It's all inclusive. So the key really would be to get all your kids 7 through 12 in the same environment and have them work for that time frame, if that's the goal, if that's what you're looking to accomplish. I mean, there's a whole lot of different ways to do it, but what you need to understand is you do not have 7.5 at the junior high, 7.5 at the high school. It's all inclusive. Every kid in a program, grades 7 through 12, is considered one program.
I had a softball coach in my office this last week, and he was within the 7.5 hours, and he wanted to make sure he was fine. He happens to have a couple softball fields that he has available to practice on. Well, he has his 7th through 12th grade at the exact same time on those fields together. Yes, he separates the varsity and the JV and then the middle school, but he had him at the same practice for 7.5 hours, and that would be okay. Yes?
What about private lessons?
Now, private, if you as a coach are doing private lessons with your kids, that does count towards the 7.5 hours. Anything that you do with your kids counts. Now, if the kid and the parent are going somewhere else with some other coaches that aren't part of your program, that wouldn't count. But if you as a coach are doing private lessons and are in the gym working on their shot or lifting weights with them, anything else like that, that would count towards the 7.5 hours.
Well, you can't do Saturdays though, right?
Cannot do Saturdays private. You are away from your kids on Saturdays. Let them have a weekend in the off season. Get away. Okay, you cannot have it. Only school days. And you also have to remember spring break. Spring break is not a school day. So anytime the kid is not in school and not in session, you're not going to be able to have 7.5 hours. Like, for example, Thanksgiving. Let's say Thanksgiving for those spring sports. You can do the 7.5 hours Monday through Wednesday if you're off Thursday, Friday from school. Because you have school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You have 7.5 hours that week. Okay, there's not specific 1 hour this. You know, it used to be 1 hour a day. You can mix and match however you want.
You know, social gatherings.
Oh yeah, also Rudy was just reminding me on those review question and answers within the last year with the adding some with the community service and the fundraisers, social gatherings are counted towards the 7.5 hours. I'm pretty sure they're counted, correct? Yes. Okay. So just read those question and answers. You will understand what we're talking about.
If you have open gym, like now during
Open
the
a gym there's no open gym. Open gym, nothing anymore. There's nothing called open gym. Open gym is part of 7.5 hours. You have taken that key, you have opened the gym, it counts towards your 7.5 hours.
I'm
Okay?
talking about the summer.
We don't regulate summer. This is totally
But
separate.
my question about a kid is, if a kid from another school comes to your open gym, is that a violation?
Okay, this is what we've talked about. If it's a regular thing, if a kid's coming Monday, Wednesday, Friday, open gym every week, because that's what you have, and transfers, yes.
If they
If they transfer.
They just come and. 'cause
There's no violation.
Their sister came, they come, they play. I'm not in violation for letting her practice, just run. She's with the other school. She has no intention of transferring, she just comes.
That's fine. It's when she comes, if she comes when you'd have the issue.
Now, here's another thing. If you teach weight training, and it's a sports-specific weight training class, meaning you got your football team in there, or you've got whatever that may be, your basketball team, whatever it may be, that counts towards your 7.5. Okay, so make sure you understand that. So if you want to have a weight training class, it must be open to all students within the school. Okay? And it can't be something you say it's open, but it's really not. You've got your football team in there. You need to make sure that if that's the case, that there's a strong mixture of regular ed kids in there with some of your athletes.
Any questions? Yes.
What if, for example, you got dual credit and they're taking weight training classes at a college level, and they're working out at the high school level also?
Who's the teacher on record?
He's a collegiate instructor.
Okay, and is it open to all collegiate kids? All collegians that are on their campus?
Yes.
Then it's fine.
Now, if you've got a weight training class, it's taught by someone who does not coach. So if none of your athletes are in that weight training class, then you're okay. All right. So that would be the key. Would be to have someone who does not coach in your program and who is a weight training instructor. Now you have no issues as far as time frame is concerned.
Be real careful, guys, because this is the gray area that a lot of schools are trying to hide behind. We've been in the schools, assistant principals, superintendents, as Rudy was. We understand it. And so when you have a weight training class, and all of a sudden the registrar is taking every football player and you're saying it's open to the general public, and then they're putting the football players in this one class because the registrar is making them go. Believe me, I have a husband that's a counselor, so I understand they go in there and put these kids in there. And then the teacher of record is somebody else, but your football coach has a prep that period, and they're in there with their football kids lifting weights. Okay? That is happening, and that right there would count towards your 7.5 hours. Does that make sense? Because that is what goes on. Okay, so be really, really careful with what you're doing. Okay? Yes?
The weight training class is not sport specific. You got kids from every sport in there year-round.
If it's athlete specific, it's going to count.
Right.
So if it's open to the whole general public that anybody can take weight training, it doesn't count. But when you start making it athlete specific and only athletes can get in that class, then that's when it's going to count towards your 7.5 hours.
One question. Let's say your boys coach is teaching sports PE, okay? So where's that 7.5 hours come in? Let's say I take the girls at night. Would that count?
What sports PE is it? Is it your athletic class or is it just
Athletic class.
okay? So
So the boys coach is teaching that athletic class for everybody, boys and girls. Does that count the girls for 7.5?
it will,
Even though I'm not there?
correct, because it is specific to athletics. Anything specific to athletes only, athletics will count.
So I give up my 7.
You do. So a lot of contract coaches or coaches that aren't teachers usually don't have their kids in athletic class, so they can have them 7.5 hours after school. I know, I understand, like I said, Rudy and I have been there. I understand coaches as teachers. You like that athletic class because you don't have to grade papers and you get to start practice early, and we understand all of that. But I'll tell you, if I was a coach in this day and age with 7.5 hours, it's a lot easier if you had 7.5 hours after school and not an athletic class. And so some of you coaches need to think about that, but within the rule.
You know, we really need to think about what we're trying to accomplish here. You know, I can't tell you how many transcripts I get for and petitions where we've got a kid's got a sports-specific basketball class, a weight training class, a teacher assistant class, and then they've got 2 D's and an F in their English, in their mathematics, whatever it may be. And those kids are eligible. Those kids are eligible. You know, we're not doing them any justice, guys. Where you think, you know, and trying to put them in coursework where we're going to get them eligible, we're not doing them any justice. We need to really think about who we're serving and what our goal is.
Okay, new rule. Actually, scrimmage is not a new rule. You have one scrimmage prior to the season. The alumni game now is, if you have alumni game, it must be prior to the regular season. And alumni games do not count towards your scrimmage, but it has to be done before the regular season starts. So if you're going to have one, that's the only change that was voted on this year.
And what we do allow with an alumni game is we allow you to charge an admission and have concessions, things of that sort. One of the goals is to go ahead and generate some revenue for your program. So it's a really good situation. Make sure that you clear it through your administration, though, because obviously there could possibly be some liability concerns. So make sure that you get that taken care of.
Does it matter which one is first or second? Or?
It does
No.
not, just as long as they're before the regular season. Yes?
I have one question again. I just want to make sure it goes back to the athletic class. You have an athletic class that's not specifically just dealing with athletes. It's open to everybody in the school. Does that count towards?
You wouldn't call it an athletic class.
You wouldn't call it an athletic class. That would probably be a PE credit. So again, that's where you're walking that line right there. And as administrators, the administrators have to make that determination, not us. But it would be a PE class, you know, team sports. I don't know what they call it in a normal PE setting, but if it's called an athletic class, but you're opening it up and it's really not open to other students, then it would count.
For tennis, is that same to the 7.5 also?
Tennis, golf, and swimming, it does not, and spirit. Those are your year-round sports, so the 7.5 hours does not pertain to them. Okay, scholastic eligibility. This hasn't changed. Have I wanted to change? Yes. 2.0, I've kind of back and forth a little bit. Some athletic directors think that it needs to be a little bit tougher. This has been in the state statute since the 70s, 80s, and so is it time to strengthen this because the NCAA has strengthened theirs as well? Is it time to tweak it a little bit and not count, as Rudy said, the example of athletic class, weight training class, teacher's aid class, all of those? I don't know, but at this point the commission and the board are saying we're staying with the 2.0 with this. But again, you need to think about your kids. And the reason we're staying with the 2.0 is because there's some athletic directors, we don't want to lose those kids that really need sports that might go off the beaten path. But that's something that we'll probably be talking about in the next couple of years. So nothing has changed here. But one thing we want to talk about in scholastic eligibility, in this day and age, coaches, athletic directors, I know there's a lot of coaches in there. You need to know what classes your kids are taking. It's not just up to the athletic director. If a kid is taking an online course, you need to be aware of that. Because that online course, that virtual course, that going to a community college dual credit course, all of those count towards scholastic eligibility at the 9 weeks, at the semester, at the 6 weeks, whatever your grading period is. So you have to have grades from all those outside sources to do your eligibility. And where we see the issue happening is when we get kids that are scholastically ineligible participating, we have to forfeit games. It's usually almost 100% of the time is the coach or the AD was not aware that the kid was taking online courses. So please make sure you find out, for your athletic director coaches, find out what's going on with your kids. A lot of kids are taking credit recovery courses. Credit recovery does count towards scholastic eligibility and must be, the GPA from those classes must be calculated in.
You know, question.
An ineligible academic kid can practice. They cannot go on the bus, they cannot suit up, they need to be in the stands. But they can practice if they're scholastically ineligible.
Yes.
They need to be showing progress, and that's up to you as a coach to make that determination. Now, if they're ineligible for any other reason, they cannot practice. Only scholastic ineligible kids can practice.
You know, one of the questions that we get a lot is regarding the cumulative provision for ineligible student athletes. Now, understand that that can only be used at the end of a semester. You only use it at the end of a semester, and if you fail 2 courses during the semester, you cannot use the cumulative provision. Okay, if a kid fails 2 courses, they're done. But so what you want to do is at the end of a grading period, of a semester grading period, what you'll do is you look at that grading period, the grades for that grading period, whether it be the second 9 weeks or the fourth 9 weeks. I know in APS you're in a 6 weeks, so it's a little bit different, but for the majority of it, it's the end of the second 9 weeks, the end of the fourth 9 weeks. You look at those 9-week grades. If a kid has 2 Fs at the 9 weeks, you can still proceed to the semester grades. If a kid's got 1 F at the semester, now you can use the cumulative provision. If a kid's got 2 Fs at the semester, you cannot. Okay? Any questions on that?
Yes?
Just going back to the online classes, their grades, student athletes' grades on an online class, especially if it's a college credit class, they're not applicable at 9 weeks, correct? Because they don't receive a grade until the semester.
You need to get a progress report. You need to get a grade. Now, on some of these virtual classes, and this is the other issue, you have online courses. You need to talk to your student athletes. You have some student athletes that are waiting till the last 3 weeks of the semester to complete an online course. If they are waiting and waiting and waiting at 9 weeks or 6 weeks, that is an F. Because they haven't even started that course. They really have a 0 in the course because the course starts from the beginning of the semester to the end. So at 9 weeks, when you check that, and they've just barely signed their name, and they haven't even started opening up chapter 1, 2, or anything else, that is an F when it comes to scholastic eligibility at the marking period.
So that grade must be placed on the student's transcript prior to the first day of the following semester. Okay, so let's say a kid's taking an online course right now, or a concurrent enrollment, or whatever it may be, right now, a college course right now. Okay, that grade must be on that student's transcript prior to your first day of school this year. If the kid finished the online course 2 weeks into the school year, it cannot be utilized for eligibility for this coming grading period.
Did he confuse you? We went from 9 weeks to the summer. Okay, so.
Oh, I just used that as an
example. So we were talking about the 9 weeks. He's talking about the summer courses that they're taking right now. If a student athlete is trying to remove an F or get a higher GPA in order to be eligible, it needs to be on the transcript at the school and completed prior to the first day of school. Hey, this is a new one. Because of our issues with virtual, concurrent enrollment, online classes, what's been happening is some coaches, athletic directors, have not really discovered that a kid is scholastically ineligible at the 9 weeks period or the 6 weeks period until they already started playing games. And then they realize, they go back and go, oh my gosh, there was a class we didn't count. The kid's now scholastically ineligible. And the kid, during that period that they should not have been participating, might have played 5 baseball games. What happens then when the kid gains academic eligibility in that sport? They must sit out the number of games that they played when they weren't supposed to. So if they played, let's say at the 6 weeks period, or even let's say at the semester, you guys said, oh, they're eligible. And then you found out, and so they continued to play, or they started playing baseball, or they continued to play basketball, and then you found out that they weren't eligible. Once they become eligible, they have to sit out that number of games. Now, for underclassmen, if it's at the end of a semester and you don't have any more games for them to sit out when they become eligible, that will carry over to the next year. Not football, because it's not fair. If they play baseball and they have to sit out 5 baseball games, sitting out 5 football games is not equivalent. So it would go to the next year, they have to sit out the first 5 baseball games of the season. They have to give back those games that they should not have been playing when they're academically ineligible. Yes? They are forfeited, but they're forfeited for the team, and here the kid gets a smile because he got to play and it's not hurting him. You know, and so that's why it went that way. We had a situation this year where it's on a 6-week grading period, and we did not find out about the kid till I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks into the grading period, and the kid had played already 8 games, and then in 2 weeks they got to start playing again. And they were all smiling because they get to start playing again, and the poor team had to forfeit those games that he played in, but the kid barely even had to sit out. So that's why this rule has been put in place. Petition athletic directors. As you know, Form A, Form B, actually we used to have Form B, it's actually the transcript now. Form C, hardship petition, make sure you get your hardship petition forms in a week before they're scheduled. Those need to go into our office to Joe Butler, athletic directors, the hardship petition forms. And when you have an appeal, you need to get those into myself if you're going to appeal, but the signature must be from the superintendent on appeals. Now, and I'm going to talk to the athletic directors a little bit more, and coaches, you have an influence. Let's talk about hardship petitions. We are getting hardship petitions that should not be going to hardship. And it's because the athletic director and our coach do not want to tell a kid no. They do not want to tell the parents no, this kid's not going to be eligible. And then the coach is doing everything possible because this kid is a stud athlete. They would have told the parent no if the kid was a C teamer or not very good. But when it's a good athlete, that coach does not want to say no and follow the bylaws. And so they want to do everything they can, and it goes to hardship. And from the first petition to going to hardship, all of a sudden the kid was a normal transfer to mom died, you know, so he's been displaced, and you know, all of this story becomes this big old story to try to fathom something that might fit hardship. And so the athletic directors sitting on the hardship committee are hearing things that just are not true, do not have documentation, and should probably never have gotten to the hardship committee. So you need to understand the hardship committee is for those cases that are there. Parents are in jail, kid has to go live with the aunt. Or, you know, they had cancer last year and they're trying to get another year of eligibility. Different things like that, really tough situations. So I just ask you just to stand up and say no if it is no. Your colleagues are the ones having to say no because you don't want to say no. So just think about that.
And in that case, if it's a really pushy parent, which some of them are, you just need to stand your ground, say no, and let us deal with it. If they want to come and deal with us, then we'll go ahead and go from that standpoint. But please stand your ground on that. On the petition process, guys, first off, if a student has not been in your school, this is for varsity athletes only. If a student has not been in your school for 180 school days, that student must be petitioned. So if a kid came in January last year and wants to play football right now, you can't assume that the kid's been here a semester, he's good to go. All right, that kid must be petitioned. So the rule of thumb is 180 school days in your school. If they have not been in there 180 school days, they must be petitioned. Second thing, if you're going to petition for a bona fide resident, meaning someone that moved into your community, okay, we need a minimum 12-month rental agreement or a home purchase agreement. Okay, and I don't need all 125 pages of it. I just need something showing that the parent purchased the home and where they signed off. Okay, and I also need a utility bill showing that same address. As you all know, it's very easy to get on the internet right now, pull a rental agreement off of it, sign it, and fill it out and bring it to you, and you're good to go. You take that and you submit it. So what we need is again, I need a utility bill with that. We had a petition this year in one of our areas that came from a paint company or something in the community. It was, and so let's make sure that we've got that under control. So again, a rental agreement, purchase agreement, and a utility bill.
The other thing, it started, it's about our third year with 8th grade participation forms. A lot of you have the 8th graders moving up. Make sure we get a signature by the parents that they understand the bylaws, that they're making their open enrollment choice at 8th grade. Make sure we get that participation form sent into our office. Those have been very, very helpful. Parents are kind of, as you guys know, parents are shopping their kids around at a younger age, younger and younger. And so for them to understand that whatever they choose for 8th grade, if they're going to play at the high school level, that's where they're going to stay. So make sure we get those in.
One more thing, we see a lot of this in guardianship situations. We get a statement signed by a notary public. Remember that guardianship needs to be a minimum of 1 year, and it needs to go through the district courts. So pretty much you got to adopt the kid, is what it comes down to.
Did not participate. Did not participate can be used in any situation except freshmen, 8th grade and 9th grade cannot use did not participate, and any kid coming out of a boarding school. When a kid leaves a boarding school, they're going to be ineligible for 180 no matter if they played or not. In 8th grade, 9th grade, they cannot use did not participate. Other than that, this rule, I would say probably is used more than any other rule to get kids eligible, which is fine. Did not participate does trump residential. So if a lot of times when you get a kid coming from a larger school to a smaller school, they probably didn't play that sport and they didn't move. Let's say you have a kid from Portales and he didn't make the basketball team, and all of a sudden he's going to Elida now, or Dora. Elida don't even have boys sports, they're co-oping, so they're going to Dora. In a situation like that, if they didn't play at Portales and they're still living in Portales, they can go to Dora and participate under the did not participate rule, because they didn't play that sport the previous year. Now, the did not participate rule, though, in order to use that, they must have been academically eligible to participate the following year. So if you get a kid that didn't participate only because they were failing and they didn't have a 2.0, then you cannot use that rule.
One more quick thing, and Sally brought this up. In a petition, if the kid is not academically eligible, you cannot submit a petition on the kid. We get a lot of that. We get petitions coming into our office and the kids are not eligible to participate. So, bottom line is this was just ruled in this last board meeting. So make sure that the kid is academically eligible before you submit that petition.
Any questions with anything that we've talked about? Mm-hmm.
This did not participate, that's sport specific, or is it for?
Sport specific. So you'll see a lot of our letters is they are ineligible for football, basketball, and baseball. However, they can run track and field. They can do track because they didn't do track at the previous school. So it is sport specific.
So that's why it's so critical, athletic directors, that you check the box of sports played this past year, because that way when I'm ruling on it, I can sit back. The kid just played football, and we'll say he's a transfer student, ineligible for 180 school days in the sport of football only, meaning he can play varsity sports and everything else.
Hey, coaches, athletic directors need your help with this. Just because a kid shows up to your tryouts, or shows up to an open gym, or shows up on your campus to start practice or preseason, does not mean that they are a student of your school. A lot of coaches assume I'm just going to coach anybody who shows up. Okay, I'm just going to start preseason practice. I'm just going to start football practice here in another week. And you have 100 kids in football, especially your larger schools, or you have 40 kids in football, and you just say, okay, start running and starting to do drills. And then come to find out that the kid may be homeschooled, maybe at a charter school, and or could be at a private school. Private school kids that are not members of our association, so I'm not talking about the academies, the Hopes, the St. Mike's, I'm talking about private schools that are not members. Those kids are not eligible to participate at any school. And that's been going on. We have a private school, small private school kids show up at a practice and they're allowing them to participate. They cannot participate. Coaches know who you have there at practice during tryouts. Homeschool kids are only eligible in their public school attendance zone. So if you have a homeschool kid, coaches send them to your athletic directors. And athletic directors make sure that they live in your attendance zone school. That's the only place by state statute. There is not any appeal process for these, for homeschool, because it is state law. We don't have any, we can't trump anything. And then charter school kids, they can have an open enrollment choice at the 9th grade, or if they did not play at the 8th grade, just like 8th, 9th grade. After that, if they're coming to you as sophomores, juniors, and seniors, they're only eligible in their home attendance zone school. So those are the three. Charter, and then alternative, which a lot of you don't have to do with alternative schools, but those follow the charter school rules. Yes?
Under the homeschool, say you have a homeschool student in your family, in one district. You coach at another district that has kids in that district are allowed to come down and take their academics there. Would that homeschool student be eligible to participate in athletics at the school you are at, or are they stuck having to participate at so-called attendance schools?
Well, I don't like to use the word stuck, because they get to play, you know, and they're not in the seats with all the other kids, so I don't like to use the word stuck, but no, they will not be able to go. They must participate only at their public school that they live in. So even if dad goes somewhere else, or, you know, sister's here, but that kid's homeschooled, they have only in their home attendance zone school.
All right, thank you.
Do we have paperwork we can fill out on homeschool kids?
The homeschool kids stay with the athletic directors. So it's up to the athletic directors to make sure that they're in their attendance zone. Any other questions? Guys, this is huge. Yes?
So you said there's open enrollment for a charter school at the 9th grade year. So if a student transfers to a charter school, say, as a 10th grader, they're ineligible for the rest of their high school or for a 180 days?
Well, so they played somewhere
Say they played somewhere.
that's not in their attendance zone, and then they transfer to a charter school. They must follow the transfer guidelines. They would not be eligible at their new home attendance zone school. They would have to sit, because you cannot use home or charter to gain eligibility at another school. So we do follow transfer guidelines on that.
But they just be ineligible for 180 days, right?
No, they would not be, they cannot, yes. Okay, so in your scenario, they did an open enrollment choice and they went to school at a public school here, but they live here. Then they went to charter. They would have to sit the 180. Yes.
On the varsity level, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So you have a kid that lives, transfers on the open enrollment of Frank, lives at school A and she lives in school B district.
It depends, no, the kid would not be eligible. Okay? In your scenario, the kid would not be eligible, not just because of your scenario. We've got a situation where if a kid makes an open enrollment choice at one school, and then they want to transfer and go back to their home attendance zone school, even though they moved, they would be ineligible. So let me give you an example, and I'm going to give you an example maybe in the Northwest, because I don't want to stick here with an Albuquerque metro situation. We have pockets where there's so many schools in one area, a parent doesn't have to move in order for kids to go everywhere. So let's go to the Northwest. Let's say a kid lives in Farmington High School's district. The parents decide and the kid decide that for an open enrollment choice, I'm going to go to Aztec. Okay, they can do that. They're eligible at Aztec. But when they became eligible at Aztec on an open enrollment choice, they lost their eligibility at their home attendance zone school at Farmington High. So if they went back to Farmington High, they would be transfer students, even though they live there, because they gave that up to be eligible at Aztec. Now, some parents are trying to go around the rules and skirt and say, well, now I'm in PV's district. Okay? They're saying, oh, so I want to be eligible at PV. They're not eligible at PV. They're going back, PV's now their home district. They gave up their home district, and now when they go back to their home district, they are sitting 180 school days. Did that make sense?
Well, it's not school specific, it's district specific.
I'm going to say district. Farmington and PV and Aztec are different districts. I think that one usually comes to us. Now, of course, if the parent moves to Rio Rancho, yes, they're going to go to Rio Rancho because that's their home district. It's those pockets, it's those metro area pockets, and I'm not just saying Albuquerque's a metro area. We have a lot of pockets now where there's a lot of schools. We got the Portales, Clovis, Elida, Dora, Floyd area down there that they just go all over the place. That to me is like a metro area. We've got the Las Cruces area, Gadsden area, that's a metro area. We have the Northwest right now, that's a metro area. We've got the Roswell area, there's a metro area. So there's a lot of pockets. So what I would suggest is you give us a call. But the example I gave was a situation, they're not in the same district, but they're playing the game to move to try to get back. Yes?
Since you're in the Northwest region, can you clarify for us with like a boarding school? Because we have like Navajo Prep, it's a boarding school, but we also have Aztec, which boards students, like native students. So how can you...
Okay, Aztec is not a boarding school.
Okay, so you're counting it as a public school.
It's a public school, because Aztec schools are not in charge of that boarding facility.
So would they still be considered a regular transfer?
They would be a regular transfer. Now, if those kids go to that Aztec boarding school, that boarding place in Aztec, I'm not saying Aztec boarding school, the boarding facility in Aztec, and it's their open enrollment choice, then they would be eligible at Aztec. But if they go to that boarding facility in Aztec as sophomores, juniors, and seniors, they wouldn't. Okay.
I'm asking the question though, all right?
Yeah, oh, no, I do, because we get that all the time. And the boarding school rule, they are eligible when they go to the boarding school. When they leave the boarding school, they are not eligible. So if you have any student athletes that are thinking about going to NMPED, Navajo Prep, and they don't like it and they decide to come back, they're not eligible. So you need to tell those parents that up front.
But if they leave like our school and they've already played sports at a public school, then they transfer to the boarding school, they're eligible then there?
The boarding school, not the Aztec one, but NMPED, Navajo Prep, Wingate, all of those, Santa Fe Indian, yes.
If they board there,
So they can't go
if
there.
they drive there, like for example, living in Farmington, driving to Navajo Prep, if you don't board there, you're just like a regular student.
Any other questions? These are great questions. Coaches, ejections, NFHS sportsmanship course. Second one, you get to come and meet with me at the NMAA, and we'll see where we go. This last year, I think only met with one coach. It was great. So you just got to remember, you guys are out there Education-based athletics. You have it all over t-shirts that Buster did for this conference. That's what we're all about, education-based. Remember what we're all about. It's not about winning. Okay, it's a lot more than just winning. And participant ejections, on the third ejection, if a kid, and that's multiple sports, so if they get ejected in football, ejected in basketball, and then all of a sudden they get ejected in baseball, they're done. They're done for a whole year. We didn't have any of those this year. We did have one 2 years ago, but this year we don't have any of them. But we're not going to get ejected, so just guys know, you know, as coaches, I coach, Rudy coach, we've been there. Guys, no, once you get the warning, let it go. You don't need the last word. Every time somebody comes to my office, it's because they want the last word. The coach wants the last word. And if they would have just sit down or turn away and not say a thing, even under their breath, we wouldn't have an ejection. So just make sure you're not going to get the last word, so don't try. Okay? Just. Want to say anything about ejections? Good? Okay. Drones. I don't know if you saw that drone the other day on the news, but somebody put like a gun to the drone and we're shooting around, and there's like FAA regulations. Anyway, no drones anywhere. If it's up to practice, that's up to you guys. We're not going to regulate practice, but there's been a lot of injuries with drones, and they will not be at any football game, track meet. But like I said, at practice, that's up to you guys if you want to film from up there, but they will not be used at any sanctioned event. Anything with drones?
If you need to use one, just rent an airplane.
Coaching license. New coaches, make sure you get the first aid training. And athletic directors and the coaches new that are in here, or you have your assistants, we do not license. The NMAA, it's the public education department. So everything must go into them. The only thing we do is we have the NFHS Learn course. We have a link from our website to them. We can't fix NFHS Learn. We can't go get a certificate from them or anything like that. So it is a public education department. But the new thing out there is the first aid. So make sure that you do take the NFHS first aid course. Any questions? Yes?
I know PED and the coaching licensure. Do you guys at the NMA have any input at all? Because
yes, we do. Scott Evans in our office and myself work closely with the PED. But as any other, if you've heard any other administrator try to communicate that, it gets a little difficult. I'm meeting with Matt Montano is my contact at the PED, and I meet with him next week. We've been trying to get the first aid course written in there. It was supposed to be up last year. We're still hoping that it's up now, but how can I help you?
The issue we ran into used to be you could get your coaching license at 18 and start coaching. Usually a lot of former players and stuff to help fill out middle school staffs. They changed that. Now you have to be 21 to get a coaching license. And what the licensure that the PED has told me is that they did that because there was an inconsistency between a substitute license and a coaching license that you have to be 21 to substitute at the high school level. So, but you only have to be 18 to sub basically K-8.
I didn't know that. I was not aware they changed from 18 to 21. Let me talk with the PED on that. Because I know there's some assistance that you get right away out of high school doing your C teams and things like that. So let me talk to them and deal with that. Thank you for letting me know. I didn't know. Any other questions? Yes.
Seen a couple times, is it a district or state rule? If your school doesn't have sport, can the kid go to a school?
No, it's not a rule anywhere. If they don't have a sport, they don't have a sport. So, the charter school law opens that door. For example, if East Mountain doesn't have a sport, because they're a charter school, those kids can go play in their home attendance zone school somewhere else. but that's the only situation. A member school kid cannot go to another member school and participate. So if Kirtland Central does not have tennis, Kirtland Central kids cannot go to Farmington or PV to play tennis. Any other questions? Just so you're, like I said at the beginning, Rudy and I, Scott Owen, are available for you. Call us anytime. We'd rather have the questions than and give you the answer, and let's talk about it before a mistake is made. So thank you very much.
Good job. I gotta run off to this, got this track lunch.